All right, and we're live. Live on LinkedIn. We're also live on Facebook and on YouTube. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 1 p.m. or 1:10 p.m. Eastern time. We're a little bit late, but technology, right? Uh, so today we're actually kicking off a new series, Wayne and myself. And just so for those of you who don't know us, my name is Sharon Gill, and I'm a co-founder with Wayne for the Purpose Center Leadership page, as well as Sharon Gill International. And we are just so pleased to be here today. And we're kicking off a show that we're calling, what am I calling it again, Wayne? What's your take?
What's your take?
What's your take? Where we're going to be
Oh,
pulling
God.
themes from the daily headlines,
Yeah.
and then we're going to see how it applies to you in your leadership and in your life. So, Wayne, why don't you just say a few words, and then I will welcome everyone who's watching.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sharon. So today we're scouring the headlines, and a couple of different headlines caught our attention. And this will be kind of a free-flowing discussion. So I'll bring up the first one. I'm actually
Before you start, Wayne,
Okay,
because
yeah.
before you start, Wayne, don't start as yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to give people a few more seconds to log on. I saw a viewer on, it might have been Facebook. So the LinkedIn folks, you know the deal. There's 33 of you guys on right now, from what I can see. So if you could post your name and your state or country, that would be a real big help, because we want it to be a little bit interactive today. We're going to ask for your participation as well. So your name and your country, please post that so we can say hello to you, and we will bring up certain questions on the stream. So thank you for kicking in. Thank you for joining us. But before we jump into it, let's see who is here. Let me see who's going to be the first to say, I am here. And if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, same thing. You know, we're looking at the comments fit everyone. So there might be a little bit of a delay, but I know you guys are actually watching because I'm looking at you guys on my other screen. But today's broadcast is, hey, thank you for being brave, Lorelei and Clara. Thank you for being brave. Daytona Beach. And Clara said DMV. Shabir says USA. Jim says North Carolina. Shelly from Vancouver, Canada. Stephanie from Texas. Jamie from Maryland. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Appreciate it. And we're looking forward to your questions. But today we're going to be talking about, what's your take? And so Wayne is going to tell us about a headline, and we're going to talk about how does this apply to you in your leadership or in your life. So keep saying, keep typing in the comments. Good to have you here. Emilia from Florida, and Margaret and from Virginia, and Tammy from Ocala, Stephen from Utah. Good to have you here. So what headline are we going to talk about today?
Well, I thought we could probably cover a couple because they have some similar themes, Sharon, that we can pull out, and I'm sure your audience is going to be just what's the word I'm looking for? Resonate with. It's going to resonate with these topics. The first is with the company Peloton. Now, many of you have heard of Peloton. They're known for their exercise bikes and their treadmills, health company, and has just done amazingly, right? And they just announced, though, I'm going to say, according to ABC News, they actually suffered their worst day as a publicly traded company in history on Friday, after they told investors that it's going to likely lose more money than it had actually expected in the coming year. And the main reason for that is that as the demographics have shifted, as we've started to come out of the pandemic, people are going back to their workplaces. People are going back to gyms. People are using their disposable income in other ways, like restaurants and other activities. They are pulling back from Peloton, which made a lot of gains during the pandemic, when everyone was at home. So that just brings up a situation that all businesses have to deal with, right? That during one particular scenario of the pandemic, it was one thing. Now we're moving into uncharted territory. So how's that going to affect our businesses?
All right, so that's interesting. So let me break that down from my interpretation of that, right?
Yeah.
And I want the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the leaders, everyone on this call to really listen and to really add your take, right? So Peloton, by the way, that's the exercise bike company. We all see them on TV, and we see the mirror, and we see all this different stuff that they're advertising. Last year, I think they had their best year. I think because of the pandemic, because everyone was at home, and we all know to bust stress, we got to exercise. And so I believe that last year, Peloton had more demand than even supply, right?
Yeah.
And so what Peloton did is they ramped up production, and they, they ordered more stuff, right? And they did this because they were looking at what was happening, and they were expecting that to continue, right? And it may not have seemed like a bad idea at the time, but there is a lesson in this, folks, okay? So, and I'm already seeing this, Wayne.
Yeah.
So last year was a very unique year for the entire world. We found ourselves in the middle of a pandemic. We found ourselves in a place where, we're pretty much hostages at home, right? And so companies had to pivot, had to send people home. They were doing, remote work primarily. People lost businesses. Some people actually, made a lot of money, but many people lost companies, right? And so smart entrepreneurs were trying to figure out, well, maybe next year this may continue because we don't have a cure for COVID, so we may still be home. The problem is this, and this is a problem for all of us, I think. The sand hasn't settled yet, right? So Peloton made a gamble on us being at home for 2021 and 2022. Well, halfway through 2021, a lot of our people got vaccinated and felt safer to be out. And we were tired of being home. And we missed the gym and the camaraderie at the gym and all the other things that make up society, make us tick as human beings, right? And so Peloton miscalculated. And as business owners, we're probably going to be making similar assumptions, and we may be making some miscalculations as well. And I have a thought on how we could potentially, avoid some of that. But before I share my thought, do you have anything you want to say?
No, just when these things happen, I always learn something, right? And then I try to take a little bit of comfort for myself as a small business owner, right? And then for some of our clients who are also small business owners, because I know that's one of the things where we will beat ourselves up, or we will get into imposter syndrome, or we'll have the who am I complex. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's not that looking at a company like Peloton will say, well, oh, I'm glad that's happening. But it's just a way of saying that, look, even when you get to a certain level and a certain size and a certain amount of success, that you can still mistime the market, right?
Yeah.
You could still make a mistake. You could still be off. And so I just want to say to some of you small business people or managers or leaders within your companies that you may have miscalculated, but even the big boys miscalculate at times. It's not whether you'll make a miscalculation, it's what will you do with that? What do you do afterwards?
That's a great point. And listen, if you guys, I'd love to hear your comments on that. Did you think Peloton miscalculated? I mean, obviously, they're saying that they miscalculated. They're going to have their worst financial projection in their history because they over-ordered, right? So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. But let me give you my take on how I think small businesses or companies can plan in these uncertain market. with the caveat, as Wayne said, that even the best laid plans, there's still no guarantee.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing is, and when we talk about the Great Resignation too, we saw, you know, in 2020 and in 2021, a big part of this year, everyone wanted to go home, right? And they wanted to leave jobs too, right? And now we're seeing some of the folks, they want back their jobs, right? And it's because we're still trying to figure it out.
Definitely shifting, yeah.
Yes. So my advice to businesses in this moment is to have two strategies. Two strategies. One strategy for the remote world, right? Like, okay, if we're all remote, here's what we're going to do. But I think the strongest strategy is the hybrid strategy. And the reason why I say it's a stronger strategy is because every poll that I've done and every poll that I've seen done, when people are asked, what do you want, hybrid or completely virtual? The majority is always hybrid. And the reason I believe is hybrid is because no matter how much we want to stay home, I don't think any one of us, including myself, who's been home for the last 24 months, working completely remote, I do believe that we all want, some part of us want to go back and mix with folks, to network, right? And so I think it's important for businesses to have two strategies. One strategy for fully remote, and but your strongest strategy should be for a hybrid workplace. Had Peloton had two strategies, they had one strategy. Fully remote, everyone's going to want us. If they had two strategies, in my opinion, they would have been a little bit more conservative in those machines. They made the assumption for all of us that we were going to all be home or want to be home. And we cannot make those assumptions, right? So whether you are whatever business you're in, corporate, small, I believe that your strongest strategy, 2022, is hybrid, not fully remote. That's the trends that I'm seeing right now. And I believe that there was one other company here in the US that made some miscalculation. I think it's Zillow. What do we know about Zillow, that real estate company?
Yeah, well, some of you folks know about Zillow. Zillow started out really as kind of your friendly neighborhood online realtor. And then a couple of years ago, they got into this iBuying business. And the iBuying business was pretty much where they were buying homes and flipping them, but flipping homes at scale, like buying thousands of homes per month and then trying to sell them back, right, to make a profit. So they would buy the home, they do a little bit of improvement, and they'd hope that they'd buy it at one price, put in a certain price, a number of improvements, and then sell it at a higher price, right? And a lot of this was being driven, Sharon, by algorithms. So they had AI, artificial intelligence, that was running these algorithms that was supposed to tell them in whatever markets at what prices they should buy, what they should invest in the property before reselling it and putting it back on the market. So Zillow went out and bought literally thousands and thousands of homes. In essence, and they're not alone in this, so I'm not pointing a finger at Zillow, but I believe contributing to some markets becoming really, really expensive, because Zillow was coming in as a cash buyer, buying up all of these homes at scale, putting them back on the market at a higher price and driving up the price as well. At some point, the market got wise and Zillow could no longer sell these homes at the marked up price. And so now it's actually started selling a ton of its homes at a marked down price, thereby losing money. And it's been reported that with Zillow, right, they're going to be showing net losses of about $328 million in the third quarter alone. And with that has come a bunch of job cuts, which is really sad, because now they're going to have to let, I think it was 25% of their staff go. Just this overglut of homes and the inability to move those in markets where now the kind of the bubble that they helped create has cooled.
So before I give my feedback on my take on Zillow, let
Yeah.
me see. LinkedIn user, don't know what your name is, but it says my take is that how long COVID would last and people would stay at home was unknown and consistently debated. Strategies should be to anticipate based on probabilities what trends, demand, volumes will be. Could not have been at the extreme of stay at home or back at work. Absolutely. That is exactly right. It can't be at the extremes. So it's like the moving 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton, where different people had different work schedules that worked for the staff, which was smart, which is why what we are currently doing in some types of the world, parts of the world, I would think. That's right. That is exactly right. We can't be at the extremes. Zillow is similar. Zillow is similar to Peloton, where they overstocked, right? They overreached.
Yeah.
They saw the market and they saw the opportunities, and they were buying, buying, buying. And what happened for those of you in the US, everyone knows that within the last 12 to 18 months, real estate has, in some markets, have actually doubled. I
Yeah.
mean, just right on my street, a house would be going for $100,000 more year over year, and so from compared to last year, and so there's a big overreach. And now, as things are settling back down, the people who left the cities because of COVID and went to the suburbs, driving those prices up, they're now trying to return to the cities. So again, we all made decisions like, as a LinkedIn user said, in the extremes. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm leaving the city forever, because we're all panicked. There's nothing is forever. Okay. So having again that dual track, right? As the LinkedIn user said, not planning for the extremes. Business people, don't plan for the extremes, because we don't know what those are yet. What we're seeing right now and where I think we're going to end up is really a hybrid world. That's where I think we're heading, and that's where we're in. That's what's going to, I think, fit most comfortably with the majority of the human race, right? There are people who are saying they'll never go back to work. I said that too, but I do enjoy networking here and there. So hybrid is going to be the way to go. I'd love to hear some of you guys comment on that as well. Shelley says, let's see. Shirley says, interesting. In the financial services industry, there is such a shift to digital. However, there are still people that like to attend in person. Unfortunately, we are in a space where employees have been laid off or have, I think you meant resigned, and now they have a shortage of to not fulfill needs. It would be a crisis if you haven't empowered your employees to learn and fulfill the gaps. That is another issue, Shelley, for sure. Leaders are facing the issue. You're right. They hadn't trained. When things were good, they were in their own leadership bubble that things will always be the way it is. And so I think maybe 85% of leaders were caught flat-footed with this whole thing. So they had untrained staff, they had unhappy staff, they had unhappy team members, they had unappreciated team members, and now the team went like this, and the businesses are suffering that shortage. And there's no pipeline of leaders either, or managers, because there was an issue in the whole training. So there's so many lessons to be learned from this. Folks, you want to jump in there, Wayne?
No, I was just going to pile on that point a little bit, because I think that's one of the areas where leaders can really make a difference, is in including the staff and employees in the discussion. Like, bring them in the discussion before the crisis.
Yeah.
Many times we think that upper management has all the answers. And in the case of Zillow, for example, they were running their algorithms off of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. So, we had the robots really telling us how to spend our money. And as we can see, they're literally losing or could lose billions. And so I think one of the things we can do is, can we get the team involved? Can we get more input from our ranks? Because that's the way we get that insight and get, another perspective in order to make better decisions for the future.
I'd be curious to know if Peloton and Zillow actually involved anyone. Did they bring the right people to the table, or was it just a management money decision? Right?
Yeah, top down decision. Yeah.
Peloton saw the dollar signs, and so did Zillow.
Yeah.
And usually when they see dollar signs, companies, they're not involving the people down here on the floor.
Yeah.
And they lack, they lack some discernment there. Someone here said everyone came to Florida because we're somewhat lax when COVID hit. And yes, the prices went up for homes for sure. It is true what you said about leaving and going back. It's so true. Yes, and that's the same thing too. We're originally from South Florida. We moved to North Carolina 2 years ago, and great prices here. But literally next door, my neighbor house went up 100,000 in a year. Now I'm seeing prices stalling, and I'm seeing homes on the market longer because people were all just reacting. It's never good to be reactionary in leadership, right? And as a leader, calm minds must prevail. And I hope leaders will take away from this the value of getting input. The very people that leaders took for granted, Wayne, have walked, through the door. I always say this thing: your most valuable asset is not the building, it's the people who work for you in those buildings. Krista says, so true. Don't plan based on panic. Of course, you need to respond to change, but make sure you have a long view. I think the best way to do that is to keep close to your customers. So true, Krista.
Great point.
Keeping close to your customers
your
frontline workers, the ones who are actually dealing with the customers. They're hearing from the customers. They're getting that feedback. So absolutely. And then Shirley says, I agree 10,000%. I believe leaders have a huge impact for the better. I mean, and Lorelei says AI has a lot to learn. They sure do. They're getting there, but they sure do. And so what else do you have for us, Wayne? Anything else from the headlines? I mean, those two really were two, current stories, right? That, I feel bad for Peloton, right? Last year I was celebrating. I was like, wow, this is awesome. That's so good for them. And they came up with more innovations, but they miscalculated. And now they're all the gains that they made last year, they're going to actually be in deficit. And you said something earlier, Wayne, to the entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Line. At the end of the day, we're here sitting and we're talking because we can be armchair quarterbacks.
Yeah,
we're armchair quarterbacks, right? And so I really don't want to, minimize really what Peloton is going through or Zillow, because it could happen to all of us.
Sure.
And the point that you made,
losing
Wayne,
jobs.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are losing jobs. This is bad. That sometimes we think that we are not that smart, and these are the smarter companies. But even with these smarter companies, like you said, I don't want that point to be lost. They have the brightest mind. They have the brightest consultants. They have the brightest coaches, and they still miscalculated. So we don't want that to be lost. LinkedIn user, and I don't know your name, just says LinkedIn user on here. At my job, we discussed all of our options and made sure we provided suitable information as it came down the pipeline as to where everyone's job stood. My organization made sure to provide all of the information or resources that we needed to make sure we had our jobs and took care of our patients and their families. However, some people reacted and jumped ship. I am still here and still supporting my staff. LinkedIn user, and again, I don't know what your name is, but there was this great article that I posted on the Purpose Centered Leadership page, this page, that spoke to that, what you just said. There were people who jumped ship and left, but there were those who stayed. And the warning for leaders was stop looking at the people who left. Stop crying over what's already spilled and focus on those who stayed. Because like you said, they're still there. And those people who stayed need to be invested in and appreciated. So that's a great point. All right, so we're going to give you guys another 5 minutes. Wayne, I don't know if you want to add anything else to see if there's any more comments or feedback, or what other headlines that you've seen that you'd like us to address in the next 5 minutes. So we'll give it
I would just say one other thing. I won't bring up another headline. I think, those two are hold some great points in there. One thing that I did hear, and this guy was just he was a commentator, and Sharon and we're here commentating, right? We're putting in our 2 cents like everyone else was. But this gentleman was putting in his 2 cents. He is a reporter in the fitness area, and so what he was saying was that in following Peloton, one of the weaknesses he saw in the company, and this is his opinion, but was in the communication area. That even with regard to this whole crisis they're going through, but also in other things like with when products are delivered and if it's going to be late or if is there a part missing or the whole communication stream with Peloton, he was criticizing. And our last LinkedIn user there, the name wasn't given, but that person was talking about communication, how their company communicated with the staff and communicated with customers, just kept those lines of communication open. So I just wanted to leave on that point myself, that you can overcome a lot with communication. You really can. If you can just bring people into the conversation, you could accomplish so much more. I know that in everything that we do, Sharon, in our business, that having certainly, of course, our perspectives, but in bringing outside perspectives, it's tremendous. And so I just want to leave that with the people there as well, too, that, communicate, open it up, bring in other voices, listen. No one has this. Who can predict the real estate market or, the fitness market or any market, right? So you got to listen. You've got to open your ears and be teachable. And so I just want to leave that on the floor for today, Sharon.
And her name was Amelia.
Amelia, thank you.
Amelia, yeah. And it's very true. Communication is, when we work with clients, that's the first thing we address with the CEO. What is a communication channel? What does it look like? And, for those of you who follow us, you guys know that we have a consultancy. We work with leaders and we work with teams, right? We work with CEOs. When a CEO hires us, the first person I go to work with or to go to work on is a CEO. Because everything starts there. As the leader, the decision making. I was speaking with someone today, a CEO, and I said 95% of the decisions that you make can be done by anyone, can be made by anyone in the company. That 5%, though, is why you're the CEO. And so, for sometimes it's better sometimes when a CEO brings in a consultancy or a consultant, because sometimes the trust has been lost or their communication is not that effective. And an outside voice tend to be a little bit more neutral. Sometimes the relationship between the CEO and the team is broken, and then the trust is broken. But when an outside voice comes in, it begins to build back a bridge, Wayne.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we're here. That's what we do. And we also work with entrepreneurs, first timers, right? People are taking their ideas from concept to the marketplace. We have one of our boot camp members here on this call right now. So for those of you who did leave and said, hey, I want to go do my own consultancy, I want to go do my own business, we also have, we do boot camps to take your idea from concept to market. So we have two approaches. Work with entrepreneurs. We'll also work with established leaders and organizations. And I just want to just add Shelley's point here. She said, I bought a Peloton and had that experience. Their communication was horrible. Whoa. As a first-time buyer, and one woman would recommend, wow.
Interesting.
Shelley, they are lucky because I love their bike. Shelley, that was not a good report for Peloton. And this is again, Shelley, we're not there to know how they made their decisions in ordering so many bikes. But if their communication is horrible, then the communication channel from top to bottom might have been the reason why they over ordered, Wayne, because they weren't getting in the proper data. Their communications channel was poor. And so
or closed off,
top down, dictatorial, right? And that never works. And so, the big issues I see in companies still is communication, and leaders are waking up. They're realizing they've lost momentum, they've lost people. but they also need to invest in middle management, because people, we all hear this saying every time, people they don't leave jobs, they leave bad bosses, right? And so, you know, hire consultants and coaches. We always do that with our organization. Bring an outside voice in, because sometimes you have tunnel vision. Sometimes you have blind spots as a leader. And so get the expertise that you need, whether it's through our company or whether it's through another company. That outside perspective is worth whatever you pay your consultant for, just to have that outside perspective. And as Lorelei says, within an organization, and this is exactly right, Lorelei, there is a gap between departments. And this is a retraining. This is a retraining that leaders need, Wayne.
Yeah.
The gaps in these organizations, the communication gaps, right?
Silos.
Yes. And that doesn't work in a hybrid environment.
No.
It never worked anyway, but it certainly cannot work in hybrid, where some people are at home and some people are in the office. You need to have exceptional communications at this point. So you guys were an awesome audience. Thank you for those who participated, Lorelei, Shelley, Amelia. And if you're watching this broadcast and it's after 1:50 p.m. Eastern, you are a team replay. So do hashtag team replay, and we promise you that we will answer your questions in the feed. Thank you so much. And we'll be here next Monday, God willing, to talk about the latest news in the headline. What was the name of it again, Wayne? What's the name of our show again? What's your take?
What's your take?
What's your take? And if you have suggestions, or if there's a headline that you saw and you'd like to know what our take is, put your comments in your suggestion in the comments, and we will take a look at that as well. So join us next Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern right here for What's Your Take. All right, Amelia, thank you so much. Lorelei, thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you for being such wonderful contributors. Take care until next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.